Hey everyone, please welcome to Rock Daydream Nation. And I've got a special guest. I've got Eric Peterson from Testament lead guitarist. How are you, Eric?
What's up, y'all? I'm doing good. How you doing?
Fantastic, fantastic. Now, Eric, you returned to Australia for the first time on a headlining tour since 2010, I believe. What took you so
Yeah, it's
long?
it's been like 15 years since a headline. I think we were there 12 plus years ago for the Soundwave.
Yep.
And then we just were touring, putting out records and touring. And I think we attempted to come back there once before that. And then we were actually booked to come back in 2020.
Mm,
And then that, what happened with that.
yeah, we know.
And we just put out a record, but then we didn't get started again with that record till 2022, which brought us, late 22, 23, part of 24, writing a new record. We just finished it. And now we're, starting over again. So Australia's been on our list for a while, and we'll be there next week. We're excited.
What can Australian audiences expect in respect to the tour? Mix of the
It's
old,
kind of
mix
like
of the new?
yeah, exactly. All the good stuff. A lot of stuff that the classics, obviously people are going to want to hear, but some stuff that we haven't played like ever. Um, we've kind of left out some of our ballads like Return to Serenity, Trail of Tears, The Legacy. They've been out of the set for a long time. We just recently did an evening with Testament where we did all of Practice What You Preach
Hmm.
and songs like that, some acoustic stuff, some deep cuts, heavy stuff. So that worked out really well. So I think we're gonna try to do something like that, but maybe not as long because an evening with Testament is a longer night. But yeah, a little taste of that, something like that. You
Absolutely.
know,
Is it difficult putting a song set with the five of you? Do you have like little minor disagreements as to, oh, you should put this song in or should put that song in?
yeah. I mean, the problem is we always end up picking the same stuff. So when everybody reaches out to go grab a different spice that we're not used to, everybody's like, garlic, salt, and pepper. That's it.
Got to go to the old faithfuls, the old faithfuls.
But that's the good thing about the set is we are going to do some stuff that we haven't done ever. So that should
Fantastic.
be
Well,
cool.
no, looking forward to it. Look, just going back in time, the band, the original band, Legacy, formed in '83 in the San Francisco area. You were playing with bands such as Exodus, Slayer, Death Angel. Can you describe to the folks out there what was the scene like? What was that scene like in '83?
So I don't think it was 83 because I graduated high school in 83. So, kind of messed around. I would
Hmm.
say 84 is when we kind of started putting stuff together. So yeah, like 84 circuit, but close enough.
Yep.
It was a lot of fun. I mean, the scene was really starting to come together. A lot of the bands were, we were all influenced by more European kind of stuff like Merciful Fate, Venom, Angel Witch,
Mm.
older Maiden. I mean, back then it was older Maiden, but now it's really old Maiden, but you know, stuff like that. And yeah, we just somehow it turned into its own genre, you know.
Was it ultra competitive amongst those bands, or was like one big family?
Competitive family.
Right. And
Yeah,
everyone
and we
was
all we all
trying to lift their game, you know?
yeah, we'd go, oh, see what they did, or I don't remember exactly what we said, but we probably were like, that's really cool what they did. And or maybe, same thing for us. Maybe some bands were watching what we're doing. We kind of rose up pretty quickly. Because I remember going before I even had a band, I was going to watch Death Angel, and they're as much these like little kids on stage because that's what they were. They were like, the drummer was like 11 or something, and he was just,
Doing all
shredding
this
out. And
amazing stuff. Yeah.
yeah, so it was a lot of fun. You know, seeing Metallica in the club circuit, that was a lot of fun. Exodus was really rising up. Um, you know, seeing Possess at the end of, of what they did. And
Mm.
yeah, watching Forbidden come up and Violence. And yeah, there was like a handful of them. There was in the world, I think there's no more than like 10 thrash bands for a while. Now there's
Mm.
millions or, hundreds of thousands of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I used to go to gigs in the 80s and, see bands like Mortal Sin, who I know that supported you. And we always looked with envy with this seemed to be this little epicenter in San Francisco that was producing all these fantastic bands. Now, in Australia, there was a lot of crossover between hardcore punk and also metal. Was there any punk influence in Testament?
I mean, I listened to, um, the Exploited. One of my favorite bands was GBH. I,
Mm.
wore those records out. Um, yeah, I mean, I think I tried, the vocal style of GBH was a big thing, and the beats and some of the chord progressions. I know we did a lot of, um, what song is it? Like when me and Alex wrote our first song that we wrote together was Burnt Offerings. That one has like it's a riffarama. There's so much stuff in there of all the influences we have. I mean, there's some GBH riffs in there. There's definitely some punk stuff in there at the end. And then there's some, Metallica influences in there, and then there's some Merciful Fate influences in there with the thirds, the harmonies,
Mm.
um, maybe some Ingve influences. It's just kind of a big thing that which made us different.
Yeah. Your second album, The New Order, came out in 88 and started to
Yeah.
chart in the US. And early 89, you were headlining. Did you think at the time you were, gee, we're going to make it?
I mean, we were thinking that, but I remember when that record came out and we went to Europe, back to Europe, because we had success doing some festivals with our first record. And then we toured with Anthrax. They were on Among the Living in '87. And when we put the New Order, we went back there in demand. And I remember doing all these interviews at like some convention, whatever, going from table to table. But I really felt beat up after with all those journalists. There are a lot of older cats and talking to us. And the basis of what they were saying was, well, what are you going to do with your life? I mean, after this fades, I mean, obviously thrash isn't music. It's like rap. It's not gonna last. And I was just like, it's not gonna last? Oh shit. To me, I was like, we're doing something really cool. It's musical. I don't know what they were, maybe they were just listening to Saxon and, Maiden and whatever. But I mean, it's really not that far from it. It's just a little faster and a little heavier, I guess. But yeah, I mean, now it's funny because rap and thrash are some of the biggest genres in music,
Absolutely.
you
I
know?
was going to actually raise that with you because there seems to be a lot of genre hopping at the moment where you've got bands like Sleep Token that are like pop, and then a second later in the song, it goes into death metal and thrash. Have you got any views on bands like them that are really mining into death metal and thrash?
I mean, that particular band is cool. I really like what they do. I like how they got that. They're kind of dark, even like Ghost, it's like,
Yes.
it's straight up. I don't want to say Foghat, but it just reminds me of like the '70s.
Blue
But
Oyster
then you
Cult,
listen,
maybe?
Blue Oyster Cult, yeah, it's good. But
Mm.
then they got that dark vibe where they're kind of
Mm.
satanic, whatever you want to call it. And it's cool. It works. I mean, especially their first record. I really like that band a lot. They're good. But yeah, Sleep Token's cool. I like how what they're doing. And then there's a lot of different genres out there like deathcore and um metalcore.
Yeah, absolutely. But if the kids are going back to the source and going back to you guys, that's great, isn't it? If they're going
Yeah,
back
well,
to
that
where it comes from.
exactly. And that's when I hear some of those bands, I'm like, oh wow, they're influenced by Jimmy Borgir or they sound like Testament. And then they're all, no, that's deathcore. And I'm like, deathcore.
Mm.
Okay.
Absolutely. Practice What You Preach in '89 did even better for you. Was that an easy album to record from memory?
We were kind of on fire, and I don't know how you. I know you just mentioned that we were headlining in '89, but we also seemed to manage to write Practice What You Preach, record it, and then tour again, and all in '89. When I look back at those first five records, we recorded, '87, toured '88, recorded, tour '89, recorded, tour '90, wrote a record, toured with Slayer, Judas Priest, 80 shows. Then the next record came out, I think, in '92. Oh my God, how dare we take 2 years? But then we did, the Maiden. We did like 84 shows with Maiden and some more stuff. And I don't, I think time was different back then. I don't know. I'm trying to realize like how short time is now because a year to me just goes by like that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's I'm just getting older and I got more responsibilities and you're trying to do everything going
Mm-hmm.
this way, going that way. But back then it was just about music. So,
Mm.
you know,
Something like Practice Like You Preach, do you demo tracks and just bring them into the studio, or you just go into the studio and jam it out and songs just come out of it?
so yeah. Yeah, back to your original question. So that record came pretty easily. Obviously, that was my point is those records were written in the same year that we put them out and toured them. Practice What You Preach at that point, we were a tight unit. And that was the first record and the only record that we recorded live. Not live out in the public, but in the studio, we all recorded at the same time. Except for Chuck. Chuck came in and did his stuff after. But um, yeah, that was pretty amazing. And then we kept, most of the stuff. I think I overdubbed another guitar after the record, but um, yeah, we just got in the room and we had, we were just, I think we were really falling into what we were about and realizing what we had, and we just jammed a lot.
Yeah.
So
Um, Inspiration for guitar solos, something intricate like Time Is Coming. Does inspiration come to you jamming it out, or do you need to actually plan it out?
so a lot of stuff on Practice. Alex and I were really, you know, we jammed a lot together. So if he had some ideas of some kind of lick, I would do like, instead of doing the lick with him or doing a harmony, I would do a chord progression that worked with his lick. And yeah, I mean, a lot of that stuff it just really hit hard because I was like, I wanted to be the riff guy, and then
Mm,
he was Ingve. We weren't hanging, we weren't hanging hats on each other like that, but it just kind of fell into that category. Whereas now we're more like we're just guitar players. I do a lot of solos. I think the last record I might have done a little bit more solos than Alex, maybe. That's weird. I meant to think something like that. But I mean, no one's counting. I'm just saying it's weird going back from those days where I was the rhythm guy, he was the lead guy, and now we just kind of
morphed into something.
we morphed into something else.
Yeah. That album was more political and socially observant than previous. Was there anything that was inspiring that direction at the particular time?
Just shit that was going on in the world. I mean, at that point we
Mm,
were traveling, there was um, the news, I think like Souls of Black, I remember when we were recording, they were televising the war. And then we were just that was kind of absurd, but at the same time, everybody watched it, and I thought that was really weird. Now, coming to you live from Tel Aviv or wherever it was, they were bombing, taking over. It was really weird, and it really hit us. And we, with the whole people were started talking about the world and the greenhouse effect and stuff like that, and um, things were starting to turn. I think politically, more scandalous, but then maybe have always been scandalous, but our generation was more vocal about it, I guess. But then again, not. I don't know, like the 60s, there's a lot of activists, you know, protests and whatnot. So I know a little bit, but I'm not super political,
Yeah,
but I know enough to see when, shit's kind of crazy.
yeah,
And shit's
absolutely.
crazy right now.
It is, and we need more testament. That the sort of
Yeah.
speaking that sort of language.
Yeah.
Skipping to the ritual, that was a bit of a change of direction. It was produced by Tony Platt. What was he like to
Yeah.
work with?
It was a lot of fun. Um, it was the first more mature, older guy. Not older, but older than us. And, you know, I mean, he did Back in Black. So we were just, we really listened to him and that's a really good sounding record. Um, yeah, we had a lot of fun, Me and Chuck actually got to go to England to mix it. And then he worked with Nigel Green, who was kind of Mutt Lange's protege, I think, maybe. Um, so yeah, those guys had, some aces up their sleeves. They kind of knew how to get a really polished sound, I think.
Are you a one take guy, or you don't mind doing multiple takes until you get it right?
I want to get it right. I think it's easier to record now. I think back then with all the tapes, I really miss the sound of tape, but you can still pretty much get that sound now. But I think it's easier to get. It's easier and not to lose the vibe when you're recording now. You know, you could even punch in something and rather than back then. Yeah, I mean, you could punch in back then, but if you go way back, you have to get the tapes. And I don't know how they heard because you can't see now you could see the sound wave and cut it and look at it and go, okay, it's right there. And then take it out and then, oh, fuck, I fucked up. Oh, redo. The old school, they had tapes around their arm, their backs and their razor blades and tape. And I don't know how they did that. So it's crazy. I remember working with Pro Tools the first time too. And the Pro Tools guy was in the closet in the back fixing our tracks. And whoever knew that though that guy in the closet was going to replace the guy making 50 grand, 100 grand off all the bands, you know, they were making so much money back then, producers. It's crazy. Now everything changed. ADATs came out and people were recording at home and a lot of stuff changed in the industry. Sorry, I'm babbling now, but yeah.
No, no, absolutely no. It's interesting how things have changed, and I think a lot of folk really miss the old school, how things were done with an engineer and a band in a studio, not just spread out and in that sort of
Yeah, I
way.
think our next record, it'd be cool to like go to rent a castle somewhere in Romania or Transylvania. That's what that's on my bucket list. I know all of us would love to do something like that. We
Like,
almost got that close with, recording with Andy Sneap. He's got a place in the Midlands in England, and it's got that kind of vibe. So this new one, we're working with Jens Bogren from Sweden, only because Andy's now in Judas Priest. So, we just had to try something different, but Jens is doing a great job.
do you listen to your records, or you're once and done and just move forward? Do you ever go back and listen to your old stuff?
Well, when we're mixing, that's all you do is listen to it and you get it right. And then you revisit
Mm,
it later, you know. And most of the time when I revisit it, I'm just like, wow, it's pretty
yeah,
cool.
you're on a major
Sorry?
label for a while.
Yeah.
Did you ever have record company influence, interference, or you were free to do whatever you wanted to do?
We were pretty much free to do what we wanted to do. I mean, with this kind of music, what are they going to tell us to write, hits?
Mm, yeah,
I mean, we gave them a couple, songs that were very radio. Return to Serenity got on the radio, and that was really spun through the major FM, all over the place. So I've definitely seen that. But yeah, I mean, I think the fans and it's cool if it comes, it comes, but it's more about quality of the music than one good single and some throwaway songs. I think all the songs count. We try to write really good songs.
Absolutely. So with Low Demonic and The Gathering, you sort of returned to a hard, aggressive metal direction. What influenced this? Just it's probably time that we get back into that sound.
Yeah, I think when Alex left, that was after the Ritual, and then Lou left. I think it was time to get heavy again. That's kind of where I've always wanted. I wanted to do both. I feel like we were just, we weren't heavy anymore. I mean, we weren't playing a lot of the stuff off the lake. We were playing more like Practice What You Preach and the Ritual and stuff like that. And the band really, with I think with Louis, he was more like he didn't really want to play that kind of stuff. And what we did worked, but once we got um, John Tempesta and then Paul Bostaph, and Dave, we jammed with Dave Lombardo, Nick Barker, all these really, really good drummers and known for, being aggressive and fast. Testament went more back to where we started, but with a whole new vibe. So when Alex came back, it's like, dude, we're heavy again. Sorry. But no, he was ready for it. So
There's been a fair few players in the band. In hindsight, do you think the change of personnel has kept the music fresh?
exactly. Yeah, definitely. Especially with the drummers. Um, for me, like this new one, even with Gene Hoglan, he can he's a really, really, really good drummer. He's probably one of the best drummers. But with the new blood with Chris, it's just these younger kids. I don't know what they're doing. They're influenced by all these crazy black metal drummers and fat blast beats, and But then they also listen to Ian Pace and Neil Peart and Buddy Rich, and they know everything. So it's like even guitar players. I'm watching 5-year-olds out shred me. I'm like, what the hell's going on?
You,
So taking our songwriting skills and then having a drummer like Chris is really cool. So the new one is it's a really good record. I'm excited for it.
yeah. Do you deep down know when the chemistry of a lineup is going to work? When you get somebody in and there's been a personnel change and in your head, I think this is going to work.
Yeah, on this newest record. Yeah. It was fun writing it, there's been a couple records, I won't mention who, but it was a little frustrating,
Mm. But is
kind
it
of
sort
like,
of an instant, feeling straight away when you're jamming and you go, I don't think it's working, but you just keep it to yourself?
yeah, and you get through it, it's just you have to cut more. You gotta play the games, I guess, and go through the motions when it's going to come back that way anyway, but it's okay, I'll let the line go and reel it back in
Yeah,
when you can reel it back in.
yeah. What metal albums have inspired you? Recent metal albums that have inspired you are from other bands?
um well, I mean, there's a lot of different genres and stuff out there, but just stuff that comes to mind. Some of the bands I can't even pronounce. It's like
Mm,
because they're everything's streaming now, and I'll hear stuff, and I'm like, who is this band? But there's one band I'm listening to now. They're called Zwielick. They're from Germany. They're kind of like a really melodic. I mean, it sounds like Dimmu Borgir to me, but it's not. It's kind of got other influences as well. I like Whitechapel, Arch Enemy. Um, I like listening to Eric Clapton a lot. Um, I like to go back and forth, from old stuff to new stuff. Ghost,
mm,
Lorna Shore, some of they're a newer band. Um, I like Sleep Token a lot. I just got their new record. They're pretty good. But I always
Absolutely.
go back to my classic stuff. The first Boston record. I mean, come on, let's go.
Absolutely. It's a masterly album. Final
You know,
question. What are your
all
plans for
right.
Testament in 2025 and beyond?
2025 is going to see Testament still touring, and we have a new record coming out in the fall, um, followed by a European tour with Obituary, Destruction from Germany, and a new band called Nervosa, an all-girl thrash band, and they're pretty awesome. We're excited for that. And then yeah, and then the record's going to be new. We're going to 2026, we are going to light it up again, and um later October, November, part of December, I'll be writing. We've already started writing for the new one. So that's, going back to your question, how do you know when it works? When we're like, we just finished a record, let's start a new one.
That's good.
We're having a lot of time. Well, we figured our schedule's going to get so crazy. We definitely don't want to wait 5 years to put out another record. So if we get on it now, by the time we're done in 26, maybe we can start piecing some pieces together and, not be 70 years old when we put out our new record. So,
Well, it's a pleasure talking to you, Eric. You're flying the flag of metal, and I think a lot of your fans just love that you're consistent and being pretty true to what you believe in. So the tour's just in a week or two, and I think it's pretty well sold out. So if
yeah,
anyone
week and a
can
half.
beg for a ticket and get one, go for it.
Yeah, if you're thinking about going, or you're not sure, just look up the city you're in, and you might get lucky and be able to get a ticket still. I know half of them are sold out, and the other ones are right there.
Yeah,
So it's going to be a good time.
absolutely.
We're going to have a great time there with everybody.
Yeah, just don't take 20 years next time, eh?
Yeah, right. Not yeah, yeah. That's why I'm already writing a new record already. Come on.
Fantastic. Good to meet you. All the
You
best. And
too.
that's Rock Daydream Nation. Cheers. Thank you.
Right on. We'll see you.